Hi, so today we're going to talk about what do the diet experts agree upon. And the reason I decided to talk about this today is anyone who has done a diet knows that at one point or another you get so frustrated seeing how many diet theories there are out there, how many contradictory ways of losing weight you can hear about. And so I've gone ahead and pulled out what's in common between all the diets, even the ones that contradict themselves or contradict each other. They have certain commonalities and things that everybody agrees upon. But before we start, if subjects like this or life coaching subjects are of interest to you, make sure to click on the subscribe button below. And if you want to be notified every time a video comes out, also make sure to click on the little bell. Okay, so one of the first things that pretty much all the diet experts, the gurus, the doctors agree upon is fiber. So fiber is normally what you find in plant foods, and this fiber or cellulose, when you eat it, is almost like a broom for your system. It goes in and it's not digested. There's insoluble and soluble fiber. It's not digested by the body. And what it does when it cleans is it helps both with your digestion and countering constipation for some people, or countering watery or diarrhea stools for others by creating bulk in the stool. But also it's great for heart health. So even if you're doing a low carb diet, unless you're doing the most extreme form, which would be carnivore, which pretty much has no fiber, even in low carb and keto diets, they advocate for fiber because the fiber makes you feel full and because it's good for your health. The next thing that I think we all know we need to avoid, even though it's the hardest one on the list, is sugar. Any diet that you see will advocate for reducing your sugar or even eliminating sugar. And one of the problems with our foods today, because we're not eating as many whole foods, we're eating a lot of packaged foods, is that there's sugar added to pretty much anything that you find that's packaged, whether that be your bread, whether that be your ketchup, or whether that be your salad dressing. We really want to minimize the sugars that we eat. So begin by looking at the sugar content. When you purchase packaged foods, it will always say sugar. And the way you can understand the quantities, since it's usually in grams, is to know that a teaspoon of sugar is 4 grams. So if you see that you're buying, let's say, some kind of cream cheese frosting, and all of a sudden you see there's 40 grams of sugar, that means it's the equivalent to 10 teaspoons of sugar. I think that once you start looking at this, especially if this is your first time looking at the sugar content of packaged foods, you're actually going to be in a shock to realize how much sugar is added to everything that we eat. So obviously sugar is not only in our packaged food. Sugar is something that we add to our coffees, to our teas. It's in the drinks that we drink. So the drinks that you drink are, again, another source of high sugar content, whether it's soda, whether it's juice. Even all natural juices can be very, very high in sugar because they're basically just pulling the sugar content out of the fruit and abandoning the fiber or other parts of the fruit. Okay, so sugar. After that, there is white flour. All of the diet experts would agree that white flour is bad for you. White flour is pretty much the equivalent of sugar. And why is that? Well, what is white flour? Whether it's flour of wheat or of another grain, they basically take the grain and they completely pulverize and process it. They remove a lot of the fiber, if not all. They remove various parts of the grain, so they might be just using one part of the grain. They might remove the bran, they might remove the endosperm, so the complete package of nutrients is removed. And then oftentimes they will also bleach the grain so that the flour and the end product is white. So imagine that flour, by the time it gets to your plate, is a very, very processed product, and the way it affects your blood sugar is almost the equivalent to just pure sugar, sometimes worse, ironically. And the way you can know how much sugar is in there is here. You could either look at the sugar section, but that might not be as reflective as looking at the carbohydrates. If you see there's a really high carbohydrate count, or that the main ingredient is just says flour, bleached flour, even if it's unbleached flour, enriched flour, you know that they have really processed the heck out of this flour, and it's not good for you. Of course, low carbers try to avoid flours altogether, or they might stick to very high fiber flours like oat fiber, or pure fiber flours so that there's less carbs. But everybody agrees, avoid the white flour. If you are somebody that's doing more of a vegan diet, more of a whole foods diet, but you're still eating flour, opt for the whole grain flours, the flours that don't have added sugars, and words that you recognize. So the next thing that everybody agrees upon is to avoid processed foods. You've probably heard about whole foods diets, eating, back to nature. But the main point is that the moment a food is processed and packaged, you don't necessarily know what's in it. It's not as nature intended. It is a food that, big corporations have messed with to make it maybe tastier, to make it look more attractive, to make it last longer. And in these packaged foods, a lot of times they're going to be adding high sugar, high salt, maybe high fat, or combining all of the three to create a tasty food that can last as long as possible in a package, which is not good for our bodies. So, packaged foods are something that you really want to avoid. Opt for natural foods instead, single item foods that are closer to their natural ways, whether that is vegetable or fruit or meat or seeds. Take even the example of nuts. You can buy a nut that is a raw nut, that it's closest to its original form, or you can get a highly processed nut butter where they've added salt, oil, sugar. So really be careful the moment something's not in its original form to read the ingredients and to see what's been done to it. So avoid processed foods. Fat. Even though in low carb or in keto we will eat more fat than, let's say, we would on a vegan diet or a high carb, low fat diet, even within the low carb communities or the ones that advocate for a higher fat ratio, when you really look at how they're talking about fat, they're still usually encouraging you to eat fat in its original source, like an avocado or whole nuts, as opposed to a ton of oil, a ton of butter. Even if you're having a bulletproof coffee or adding butter to your vegetables, when you look at the ratios, whether it's on an app or really the breakdown by the highest experts, they will not advocate for more than 1 or 2 tablespoons of butter, maximum 3, or oil in a dish or in a sitting. Whereas if you look at some of our old-time recipes or some of our all-American recipes, you could sometimes see a half a cup or a cup of oil. Some of our cakes would have 1 to 2 sticks of butter. So no matter what diet approach you're taking, this is not going to work for your health, and it's not going to work for your figure. After fat, another thing that everyone can agree upon is that pesticides are not good for your body. So when you're choosing foods, you really want to try and opt for foods that have less pesticides. Now, of course, not everybody has the budget to purchase always organic foods, but whether the packaging says that they're not using certain types of pesticides or hormones, or it's from a local producer that you know of personally, and you know that they try to do ecological farming. Really try and avoid foods with pesticides. They wreak havoc on our hormones, they create disease, and ultimately a pesticide is created to kill off bugs so they can kill off your immune system, your digestive health. So really, everybody would agree, try to avoid pesticides when you can afford it. Seed oils. Even diets that, again, if we're going to low carb, that does allow for oils, even in a low carb diet, they would say do not eat seed oils if you can help it. Of course, there's more liberal interpretations that are more worried about carbs than the oils, but if you have a choice, all seed oils are highly processed and have higher amounts of omega-6s, which can be harmful to your health. And just think about this. How do they make canola oil? I mean, where would that oil come from? Whereas if you think about avocado oil or coconut oil, you know that those vegetables or fruits, I'm calling fruit because coconut is a fruit, that those are fatty in their nature, that you can easily know how the oil and fat would come out. But something like a grape seed or a seed that's very tiny and has very little oil, in order to get that oil out, they have to heavily process, use a ton of chemicals, and put that product through a lot of chemical, almost warfare, in order to get you your oil. So that's why it's highly inflammatory to your body and can be, contributory to a host of symptoms, inflammation in the body, and ongoing inflammation causes a lot of our modern day diseases. So if you're gonna opt for oils, if you're doing a fattier diet, then try to stick to the more natural sources, whether that's avocado or coconut oil or butter. Now, of course, the more vegan-oriented, lower fat diets would, some would even opt for no oils and say that all oils are not good. But the seed oils, they all agree upon. Green vegetables. Every diet agrees we need to be eating more green vegetables, more salads, more spinach, more kale, and other forms of non-starchy vegetables, whether that's peppers, whether that is radishes. Really increase the vegetable count in your diet. That increases your fiber, that helps you be full, and the vitamin and minerals that you're gonna get from these vegetables are extremely healthy and help you feel full and satisfied much longer. Portion control. Everybody agrees that you shouldn't stuff yourself. So whether you're doing intermittent fasting, keto diet, vegan diet, they're all gonna say, eat till you're full, of course, but don't overeat. Comfortably full. Sometimes they'll say until you're 80% full. So starting to learn how to have more manageable portions. All of us know that in the US, our portions are much bigger than anywhere else in the world. If you've ever traveled and had a popcorn or a Coke at the movies in other countries, or even an ice cream serving, you would see that our portions are sometimes double or more other countries. So having more normal portion sizes, starting to think about an appetizer plate as your main plates, quantities of serving, as opposed to the larger plates, is another way to start thinking about having smaller portions. Looking at the serving sizes on anything that you buy will give you a more realistic idea of what a normal portion size is. For instance, rice. A lot of times if we eat rice, we're gonna have a whole bowl. However, if you look at portion sizes on rice, oats and all of these things, sometimes a portion size can be as little as a quarter cup. So start to get a more realistic idea of portion sizes. And finally, I think the most important thing that anybody who has worked with clients or patients knows is that diet is very unique, and there's a lot of things that need to be manipulated and customized to the individual, because we are all different with a very unique microbiome and genealogy, And just like my hair is different from another girl's hair, is different from a man's hair, our bodies react to, get inflamed by, are allergic to very different things. And so you are your best expert. Nobody can tell you better than yourself what feels good in your body, what doesn't. And you are the best detective when it comes to your body. And sometimes that might take detective work, whether that's using a tracking app, whether that's just writing down what you eat and then writing down how you feel at the end of the day, or whether that's just starting to really pay attention to when you have good or bad symptoms to know which foods are right for you. So things to look out for. Good symptoms, meaning you're eating well. Do you have energy? Are you eliminating properly? By properly, we mean, are your stools easy to pass? Do you feel like you're going enough, yet not too much? Is your skin doing well? Do you have dry skin or do you have very oily skin? Do you feel thirsty all the time? Do you have to urinate too much? Do you have dandruff? Is your hair falling out? Do you have stomach aches? These are all indications of whether or not your diet is working for you or against you. So really become your own expert at figuring out the clues to what your body loves and dislikes. I hope this has been helpful. Please do share this with a friend if you feel this could be of help, which I think anybody could use some of the tips in this video. Don't forget to subscribe below if you want to see more videos about food, about life coaching, and click on the bell so that you can get a notification as soon as new videos come out. Wishing you a blessed and healthy day.